Greetings. Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to reality. Here we will explore consciousness in crisis. I am your mental navigator, the digital pit boss. Sit back as we explore the trials of consciousness. What a sad day in the fourth dimension. And here we go.
Hey, what's good? What's good? This is going to be a short message. I'm just going to wait for a few people to come on and like Spirit put on my heart just to give this message because a lot of people on my timeline need to hear this. And I needed to be reminded of this all the time or whatever. A lot of y'all are being spiritually bullied out here. A lot of y'all being spiritually bullied and don't even know it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even know I was being spiritually bullied. And still being continuously being spiritually bullied or whatever, but don't take it or whatever. Like I said, like I always say, this message is not for everybody, but for who it's for. I hope it blesses you or what have you, whatever. If no one doesn't come on in a few, I'm just going to say it because whoever is going to bless will see it on the replay or what have you. I know I got one person. I'm going to wait for a few more people to come on or what have you. For all who doesn't know me, my name is Margot Turner, aka the Dream Healer. I'm a spiritual worker. That's what I've been called to do. My main thing is I deal everything the Cosmic Records, prophetic.
Okay. Hold up, class in session. Now, I'm going to need you to go find a pen pad, maybe type some notes on your cell phone. Get ready for the double speak list. This is how you up your game. You must understand what double speak is. By a raise of hands, by a hit of the like button, how many of you know what double speak is? Do I gotta do a refresher course on double speak? Let's just get a quick definition. How about that? Let's not go all through the channels because we might have some new tubers tuning in and they just never heard of double speak. What is that? Uh-huh. You don't know about double speak. That's a shame. As much double speak as you uttering, you should know what it is. Well, if you don't know, I can hook you up. In a simple breakdown, doublespeak is deliberately unambiguous or ambiguous or obscure language designed to deceive you. If you want a more deeper understanding, you can buy the dictionary, Doublespeak by William Lutz. Yes, sir. So here in this crisis of consciousness, we have a various elements at play. First is the distraught voice. You'll always find a distraught voice at the moment you go to sleep in consciousness. Here's a conscious doublespeak word, woke. Here's what the definition, the Webster definition of woke is. This is how doublespeak works. Let's break this down. Woke, right? Let's get a definition. Textbook definition, right? And let's take an example. Wait, that ain't what I want. Yeah, I want that. Give me the, hold on. Okay. So Let's get a Merriam-Webster definition of what woke means. Now it's used in, come on, baby. Computer working a little slow. Let's get here. Let's get it here. Let's type it in there. Woke. All right. The definition of woke is aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues. Did you get that? Very simple. Merriam-Webster. To be aware of and actively attentive to important facts. That's what it means to be awoke. Well, if your facts are based upon illusions, your awokeness is really your sleepy time. You're actually asleep because what you think is a fact is actually an illusion. You have been plugged into the matrix in the back of your neck. And so, I want you to pay attention to her doublespeak. Now, remember, wokeness has an enemy. And the enemy of wokeness is truth. There's nothing the awoke utter that is true. It is all an illusion. Now let's pay attention to the crisis.
It's prophetic in nature. Like I said, I do more spiritual work than anything. I made a transition.
Get your notebooks. Spiritual works. This is a doublespeak word in awokeness. Spiritual works. It means deception. It doesn't mean that they are vibing through the spirit to benefit humanity. When they say they're doing spiritual work, they're saying, I'm doing deception. Let's move on.
Coming into spirituality a few years ago. If anyone would have told me a few years.
Another class. It's so many. This one is packed. Another doublespeak word. Spirituality. What they really mean, anything but that Bible. That's what it means. If someone tells you they're not religious, I'm spiritual, it means they have went to sleep. They are now crazy, and they're probably from New York.
Anyone would have told me a few years ago, I would be like, nah, but this is the path I was supposed to take or what have you. So I guess this is not the time to...
The path. We're going to get all of them. Get your damn paperwork out. The path. The path of awokeness is the left-hand path. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. Just type in the left-hand path. There are two paths. There's the right-hand path and there's the left-hand path. When they tell you the path, they are not identifying with what identifies with the right-hand path. They are identifying with everything on the left-hand path. Take notes.
But this is the time of day I was told to come on. So I'm just going to get this message or whatever. Spiritual bullies and what's a goon to a goblin or whatever. I was listening to, like a blogger that comes on and everything. And she was telling of a story with someone in reference to like a celebrity who was intimidating people, right? And telling these blogs to, take down this information, or they're going to have like legal, battles, legal reckoning or whatever. And that she went back to try to find the information and everything was scrubbed. She couldn't find halfway anything in reference to the celebrity in this situation. And I'm not going to mention the celebrity because that's not the point of this live, but it kind of triggered what was to be said on this live, if that makes any sense or what have you. So I'm just going to say hey to everybody. Give this message. If it applies to you, take it in. Just like eating chicken, eat the meat and throw away the bones or what have you, whatever. But a lot of people out here being spiritually bullied, we are just a physical representation. People may look at you and just see you, whatever, but you're just the outward face. You're just the representative. You have like a spiritual team that backs you in the spiritual realm that is very powerful. You have the Most High God above everything. You have angels. You have deities. You have any and everyone on your team.
All right. This is called synergy. This is when those on the left-hand path want to bring together every thought of every human being ever. And so they mask their deception by relating it to what you already believe. Many of us believe in a universal God, a one God, a creator of all things. Many of us in the awokeness, they believe in all kinds of shit. None of them agree about anything. That's the thing about being awoke. Being awoke means that you have entered into a group of people who don't agree on a goddamn thing. Nothing. Some agree. Some agree that we come from apes. Like the Amun-Ra squad. They think you come from apes. Others agree you're descendants of kings of Kemet. Others believe in the sun god, the moon god, the river god, the Ishas, they have so much shit. It's unbearable. Then there's the group that follows the one God, and there is no other God but the God. They don't compromise their God. There is no moon god. There is no sun god. There's no river god. There's no rock god. There is nothing. There's no crack god, weed god, methamphetamine god. None of those gods exist. Those are illusions of delusions of the wokeness. This is consciousness in crisis.
Spirit guides that assist you and look after you, and many times you wonder why. How did I live through that? Or what? Because you had a spiritual team that had your back. It wasn't just you. And so a lot of people just see you and just take you as some wimp or somebody out here just living through life or whatever, and they could treat you any kind of way. It's not that way, and don't even take it that way. No, especially your ancestors have your back. Your ancestors have your back.
Such a classic from the wokeness. The ancestors. The ancestors. They never mention names. They ain't never talking about my auntie Betty, my cousin Billy, my great grandfather Rupert. None of that. Never. It's always some distant relative from Kemet. Some Mbatala from West Africa. It's never nobody that you know. Unless they're really confused, unless they're really going through crisis and they had a dead relative. Then they say, my mom came to me. When did she leave you? Back in 1996, she tripped on a banana peel. Got ran over by a train choking on butter. But she came to me yesterday in a vision. The ancestors. It's a double-speak word. What it means is my psycho mentality playing tricks on me. My mind playing tricks on me is the ancestors. Be careful.
From here on out, and they're going to continue to have your back. Don't be spiritually bullied out here. And if you're in spirituality, sometimes you may meet up with people you think are going to spiritually. I mean, this could be in anything. This could be in the workplace. This could be under a spiritual mentor. This could be even be in church. Whatever it relates to you, take it. If it applies to you, and if it doesn't apply for you, just leave it and everything or what have you. Every message and everything is not for anybody. I had to learn along the way on my spiritual walk and everything or whatever. There's some mentors, there's spiritual leaders out here who mean you well. They're good covering, as they would say in the church world or whatever. And they teach you and they guide you and they have the love. And yes, those people definitely stay with them. But there's some people out here who does not mean you well, regardless of what atmosphere you're in. There's some people, you don't find this out till later. I'll take myself for example. I was in an apprenticeship, a mentorship, and at first, I heard about this person and I thought, they came with good credentials. I thought they meant well. I thought they were there to lead and guide me in a good way. I come to find out later that wasn't the case. Like I said, we're just one person, but we have spiritual allies that we don't see who look out for us. And like Lil Wayne says, what's a goon to a god? When people...
All right, now, this is when the crisis becomes critical. Whenever someone is referencing a rapper, a garbage ass, pill popping, drug addicted, $1 million rapper who's sitting in a dark room writing rhymes for profit, don't give a damn about what you say, not transcending any goddamn thing of value to your spirit, just trying to come up with cliches, click lines. It's a goon to a goblin. Shit, he's not a goon, he's not a goblin, he's a nigga with attitude. That's it. He's a rapper. He gets paid by the Jews to keep you confused. What's a goon to a goblin? She's going to use this a few times. This is her go-to line. What's a goon to a goblin? We'll see. We'll see what a goon to a goblin shall be.
Threaten you and say they have their spiritual team and they want to threaten you and throw fiery darts. But like I said, and like I heard in my ear this morning, what's a goon to a goblin? And I used to always like that line. Why I used to like that line is that I had a mentor who I was under at the time when I was selling life insurance. And he would say, I'm a goon. And he would motivate me to sell a lot of insurance. And I was one of his top sellers at the time. So, like I say, what's a goon to a goblin? Their team might have some goons, but your team may have some goblins.
Now, this is when the hood enters into the boardroom. This is very common these days. All the time I'm watching the news. In the news, these white folks with the suits on, these socialist Democrats, they've been listening to that rap music. Everybody got a rap lyric in their flow. You hear them saying, man, shit, fire. All the time. They done figured out the code. Now, could you imagine in a serious crisis, you laying on a doctor table, getting a heart transplant, and all you can hear the doctor yelling is, I'm a goon. What's a goon to a goblin? Trying to hype up the nurses in the goddamn emergency room. Really? Really? Where's the goddamn professionalism? What happened to intellectualism? Shit flew out the door with wokeness. Intellectualism left, wokeness stepped in. Ain't this a bitch?
Goblins. Your team got you. Your team got your back. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you don't have to be spiritually bullied out in these streets. I don't care who they say they are. I don't say who they say they backs them, but who backs you, boo? Who backs you? Who got your back? Who have ancestors? You stand in the back of ancestors that have your back.
Okay. Let's stick to some reality a little bit. Anybody, by a show of hands? Anybody got an ancestor that popped up and had your back? All these niggas going to jail? Ain't one ancestor stepped in and beat the case with hoodoo? Huh? Or is it just kind of like cliche? You have a feeling that an ancestor is going to pop back from the dead? Did they have your back when they were living? What ancestor are you talking about? Do we all have the same ancestors? Or are they specific to my family tree? Is it some general shit? Exactly what ancestor? You never can get it out of them. They never tell you. They just use an ambiguous word. Ancestors. People who lived before you got your back. Really, really now. Why in the fuck do I got to go to work all goddamn week? When is they going to step up and pay the bill? The ancestors.
That will lead and guide you and have your back in any and every situation. All you got to do is call on your team. You don't have to be scared out here. God did not give us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. I still believe in that.
Now you heard what she said? She just kicked the Bible verse and said she still believes in that. Now, no. You got to really pay attention to the wokeness in crisis. It's conniving. It's mental tricks being played. It's called the cherry pick. It's called the cherry pick. See, most people don't identify with wokeness. That's like east of the Mississippi, far east of the Mississippi. You could find a whole lot of wokeness around a whole lot of poverty. A whole lot of wokeness around a whole lot of poverty. And sometimes when you're in poverty, you got to come up with something because what's going on ain't working. And they tend to fall into wokeness. They stop eating meat. They go vegan. They start doing yoga, tantra, mantra, all kinds of trust. They stay at it. Wokeness. It's like a disease that controls their character. Wokeness of America. It's pretty rough, this crisis.
You believe in the fear that's feeding you? You believe in the fear that some of these leaders feed you? You believe in the fear that they feed you on the news? You believe in the fear of mongering here each and every day they feed you out here? I say, nah, you're not just you. Like I said, you're the spirit, you're the physical representation of your spirit team. You don't know what spiritual rank people have out here, but yes, you want to bully them. You want to come on lives. You want to come in your classes and threaten people. Or say this or whatever. Like I said, what's a goon to a goblin? Your team might have goons, but my team may have goblins. You can't go by what this looks like. Leave people alone. Stop picking fights with people, not just in the physical, but in the spirit. Because you don't know who backing who. Like they say, who gonna check you, boo? I don't know who needs to hear this. Get motivation. Like they say, get the spiritual covering. Gird yourself up. Some people don't mean you any good out here. Like I said, I don't know who needs to hear this. Whoever needs to hear this in the replay, they would hear this and know that they don't have to be scared out here. That their team got their back. That you are the prayers and wishes of your ancestors. You are.
She is good at the mix. This is classic play with the wokeness. The wokeness realized that in order to enlarge their flock, they must convince the spiritual light bodies, those of the divine one, to come up out of that. And so in order to do it, they need to know a few little bit of verses. So they could throw a verse here or there. See, when you inside the one God, there is no teaching of bothering with the dead. The one God preaches, let the dead bury the dead. Don't go wasting your time with dead bones. They're dead for a reason. They are no longer breathing. Can you keep your ancestors in your spirit? Absolutely. Absolutely. How about things that they wrote or done or said to you directly? Can you build off that? Absolutely. It's called knowledge being passed on. These people don't know who their ancestor worship spirit is. They couldn't tell you about somebody 200 years ago. If you ever meet a wokeness person talking about they connect with the ancestors, ask them one question. Tell their ancestor to give you their name. What? And when did they live? And where did they live? And just look in their eyes as they get ready to respond. Here's what happens. The brain sends a signal to the eye to roll back, look up to the right. I don't know why. That's what happens. Right before you lie. You can't stop it. It's a motor function you cannot control. And it happens in a split second. So you have to already be looking before you ask the question. What's happening is that first, their ear heard the question. As their mind is processing the question, their eyes lid closes. Their eyes roll back to give some sort of comfort to the brain as it releases the information to the lips. Then their eyelid opens back and you see their eye roll back into focus and they blurt out the lie. Quicker than quickness is ridiculous. I wish you could see her face. The fake hair, the big ass eyelashes. She's stuck. She's stuck in corporate America. She's selling insurance, real estate, witch doctor. She's not necessarily struggling financially. What she's struggling from is spiritual attachment to the one God. Because she has a spiritual team. Did you hear that double speak word? A spiritual team. Ain't no team. Ain't no team. There's the spirit. One God, one spirit. Nothing else. Nothing else. There's no extra. Unless you make it up. See, this is why niggas jumped on a slave ship. Because they was woke. They came up thinking that the ancestor was going to do something about this shit. The one God wasn't going for it. He had to drag your ass out of your wokeness onto a slave ship so that he could get your goddamn focus. Beat you with a whip because you was too deep, too damn deep in your wokeness. All that shit you was believing in took generations to birth you out of that shit. And when he finally got your ass far away from that motherfucking wokeness, he reinstituted you with the one God. A powerful force that enhanced you to develop something never seen on earth. We call it the modern world. The modern world was birthed through the Spirit. If it wasn't, identify all of the products created to build the modern world by your ancestral spirit gods. Show me. Show me the wonders of your God. You don't have any. You got a weave basket. You got a bamboo raft boat. That's about it. You ain't got no cell phones, no elevators, no stoplights, no wrenches, no cars, no none of that. Why? Because the very fundamentals of a moral society, in order to create an advanced society, just doesn't exist in your information. It doesn't exist in your information. Now let's examine the crisis of consciousness.
Prayers and wishes of your ancestors. Your angels got your back. Your team has your back. Your spirit God has your back. The Most High has your back. And if the Most High has your back, then nobody else matters.
Okay, this is what you call a super twist. Check this out. You cannot serve two gods. You can't have ancestor worship and Most High God worship. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because one of these gods are going to conflict. One of these gods are going to conflict. And when they get ready to conflict, you're going to have to choose between the gods. This is why it's not allowed in the one God system. It's the very reason why you have the word omnipresent. That means the spirit is everywhere at the same time. You cannot be everywhere if more than one spirit exists, because then they're there. And how can you be there when the one God is there and other spirits are there? It is impossible to be there when you're over here. Two objects cannot possess the same space and time at the same time. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Therefore, there can only be the idea of gods and then God. Because if there were more than one God, this most powerful God, then they would have to battle to decide who is most powerful. God has no equal, no competitors, no nothing. The only thing out there outside of God is deception. Because deception is the opposite of truth, and truth is God. It's that simple. Truth is God. Untruth is deception. You either speak in truth or you're deceiving. This is why her speech is so filled with doublespeak, because she's deceived. And I promise you, if I met her in person, she wouldn't know what the hell doublespeak was and couldn't break it down. But yet, she could drill it out in her consciousness of crisis.
You don't have to be scared out here. I don't care who says it. They ain't God. If God got your back, the rest doesn't matter. Stop being intimidated out here on these spiritual streets. Stop being scared. God didn't make you to be scared. Some of y'all are actual warriors out here. You live beneath your means. You live beneath your privilege. Some of y'all are gods and goddesses, kings and queens out here. Y'all groveling. Know who you are. You made in the image of the Most High. Know that. Believe that. Know who you are. Like I said, like that lyric said, what's a goon to a goblin? Like Lil Wayne said, nothing. Ain't nothing. Don't be intimidated. A lot of people look like they got it big and bad out here, but they ain't got it or whatever. No. Do I say start anything with people? No. Don't start anything with anybody. I don't start nothing with nobody, but yet let your team finish it for you. Get the support and backing of your team. Get the spiritual backing of your team. Get the support of your team.
You know what's crazy? I can't find these kind of videos with Asians. I don't find Mexicans putting out these kind of videos. I find a few white folks. White folks put this shit out. We could find a few white folks. Easily find a few white folks. Hard strapped to find another race outside of black people and white people with this type of consciousness in crisis. It's amazing.
You're not alone out here. Your ancestors back you, like I said. The angels back you. Your spirit guides back you. Your team is powerful. You are powerful. Stop living underneath your means. Stop believing everything people want to dish to you. Stop believing everything they say on the news. Stop believing the propaganda. Go to the top for yourself, because God dwells within you, and you're a reflection of the Most High. Know that. Know that you are the one. And God didn't make no junk. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a pastor. I don't care if it's a spiritual worker. I don't care if it's a rabbi. I don't care if it's a bishop or whatever. If they bullying you, they're out of order. Point blank, period. And this is not a popular message, and this message is not for everybody. But for who it's for, it's supposed to bless you. Because a lot of people are being spiritually imitated out on these spiritual streets. People are being intimidated in religion. They're being intimidated here, even in spirituality. They come from a religion, and they still get intimidated here in spirituality, still get used and abused, and still can't think for themselves. Think for yourself. Think for yourself and know that you are the one. And know that your team got you, and that you don't have to be bullied. And you don't have to just do anything anybody tell you. Take it to the Most High. Take it to your team first. If it doesn't correspond with them, let it be. Like I said, I don't know who needs to hear this. A lot of times I don't come on here unless I'm prompted by my team to know that somebody needs to hear this.
Now, she's using team once again in a double speak manner. Although she's identified what the team is, she said that the team was your ancestors, God, this, that. A group. See, here's how things work. Let's say you woke up this morning and, you did your normal social media thing. You clicked on your Facebook. You scrolling around. You already know who your friends are and what kind of shit they're going to be talking about primarily. And every once in a while, you just click and, you see somebody put up a great one-liner. And you say, damn, I agree with that. Right? Let's come up with a one-liner, right? Let's get a simple one. Let's keep it simple. Let's say the one-liner is money is good if you got it. How about that? Money is good if you got it. Money ain't no good if you ain't got none. But if you got some money, it's good. Whatever, right? You say, you know what, that's good. That just enlightened me to go get my money right. Whatever. Now, let's say that was a quote Lil Wayne. So somebody took a Lil Wayne verse and they put it on Facebook, and it resonated with you. Now we go back to the source. It's Lil Wayne, you know. Lil Wayne was in the studio smoking on a blunt, popping on a pill, and he watching the news one day, and he seen that everybody was broke and that, you know, they move off the idea of money. So the thought came to him, you know what? I know what black people want. They want money. So I'm going to do a video called Money is Good If You Got It. And I'm going to flash a couple meal tickets at them. Blah, 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 blah. Now, here's how the spirit works. The truth is specific. The truth operates like water. Sometimes it crashes. Sometimes it flows. Sometimes it's solid. Sometimes it's steamy hot. It's truth. It does what it got to do. Deception, on the other hand. Deception comes with fear, anguish, all kinds of negative energies. Now, earlier I told you, I hear white people and black people talk this conscious concept. But the amazing thing is white people said it first, at least on record. And from there, black intellectuals caught on to the information and do what they always do. Identify it as black, connect it back to black. But before we connect it to black, let's leave it white. I'd like to introduce you to my white friends.
To be carried on the left side of the body, or why in some rituals associated with some medical states you need to draw blood from a body part on the left side, etc. And also noticed some of my patrons have been interested in knowing about Turzafel, which is a neo-pagan left-hand path spirituality based on Old Norse myths. So there isn't a clear idea what exactly is the left-hand path. So I wanted to speak a bit about it so people might have some notions. Because there are some misconceptions and things are not exactly how the majority of people think they are. The left-hand path begins as a classical way of dividing everything in two sides for practical reasons in urban planning. And then along the centuries, it gained other connotations and remained something very much part of superstition. But I shall develop that further ahead. The point is, the left-hand path is seen as something evil and quite negative. But that's because people have the tendency to see everything in a dualistic perspective of good and evil. Left-hand path and right-hand path is a dualistic conception, but none of which needs to necessarily be entirely evil or good. Keep an open mind throughout this video and I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. There is this tendency to see the right hand path as a true spiritual path towards enlightenment, which isn't true. Left or right, the objective is the same: to reach greater wisdom, higher consciousness, and subsequently illumination. Only the way you choose to reach such enlightenment is different. Left hand paths and right hand paths are two phrases to describe alternative religious movements and spiritualities dealing with the occult and the study of magic as means of reaching a higher spiritual state of existence. In a few words, the right-hand path is much more concerned with symbols that represent perspectives of goodness, concerned with the community, the well-being of the group meditation, or individual meditation focused on spiritual reasons, often related to submission to a religious authority or to reach a spiritual state equal to a religious figure, with the objective to follow the footsteps of a particular spiritual role model. As such, it's much more concerned with the spiritual sphere rather than the physical and the materialistic reality. It's the abandonment of our reality in pursuit of a spiritual one. So it's a world-denying perspective. Whilst the left-hand path is much more individualistic, concerned with self-development, self-analysis, and self-empowerment. The focus is on individualism and free thought, the development of one's own abilities, rejecting religious authority and social taboos. A path much more concerned with the material, the physical, experiencing the world and reach a higher state of consciousness through the ability of appreciating the pleasures of the world. So it's a path focused on the elevation and centrality of the self. It's a path with a world-accepting view. The right-hand path and the left-hand path are labels for two schools of magic.
Hold on, be strong when it's on is on. Let me reiterate. The right-hand path by my white friend says it is symbols of goodness, focuses on community, group orientated, spiritual orientated meditations, religious authority, spiritual role models, spiritual sphere focus, and world denying views. Right hand path. Left hand path. Individualism is all about me. Self-orientated. I am God. Free thinking. Anything but that Bible. Religious denial. The black woman is God. Centrality of self. Know thyself, written on the walls of Kemet. Physical sphere focused. Woo. World accepting view. Scientology. What things promote left-hand path? Let's group a few things. Let's start with Scientology. That's left-hand path. The Kemetic community. That's left-hand path. Atheism, left-hand path. Occultism, left-hand path. What else we got? Satanism, left-hand path. What's on the right-hand path? There's only one thing on the right-hand path. One thing. Christianity. That's it. Christianity is the only thing on the right-hand path. Every goddamn thing else resides on the left-hand path. There are some things on the left-hand path that tries to mimic the right hand, but it won't work. Y'all like my white friend? He's a little more honest than black people because he has no problem with the adversity of life. He's confident in who he is and what he believes and such. He's willing to be honest about what it is. Now, let's see if you can get any black person who calls themselves spirituality over religion, self over the omnipotent, to agree that they're walking on the left-hand path. Boy, when they find out you done blown their cover, their eyebrows are going to crunch together and they're going to say, hell no, I'm studying an ancient African oldest religion in the world. You say, well, shit, as old as it is, what the fuck happened to it? It got crushed by the right-hand path, the right-hand path of God. This is what makes them upset, that Christianity gets his own hand and everything else got to share a hand. That's what pisses them off. This is why it's everything versus Christianity. Everything versus Christianity. What's up against Christianity in the conscious community? Woo! That's a hot button. Here's what goes up against Christianity. All those watching my show was a witness. The Hebrew Israelites are against Christianity. The Kemetic community is against Christianity. Activism is against Christianity. Liberalism is against Christianity. Atheism is against Christianity. Socialism is against Christianity. What is Christianity against? Nothing. The Bible teaches that God shall deal with your enemies. You spread goodness. Don't worry about hate. Therefore, you have no enemy. God has enemies, you have none. Because when they attack Christianity, they're not attacking you, they're attacking God. It's pretty simple. Let's let my white friend finish up.
White magic and black magic, respectively. But, as I've said before, I personally do not believe in white or black magic. To me, there is only power we harness through sorcery, through our own skills and through our hard work and by focusing our mind into the subject. We are the ones to give a purpose to power, be that good or bad. However, theoretically speaking, we must label white, gray, and black in order to construct boundaries and categories to help distinguishing one thing from the other. But one cannot exist without the other. I've given this example before. How can you heal a disease if you don't understand the disease itself? If you don't know how to curse, how do you know how to heal it? White magic is the basis of sorcery or the black arts. It's quite simple, really, if you think in these terms. Every shadow is derived from brightness. Every shadow possesses the energy of the light. The objective is the same, to reach enlightenment, but the path you choose to do so is quite different. Some prefer to follow a brighter and lighter guidance, while others prefer to concentrate on the self, make their own path, solely trusting in their abilities and developing such abilities through self-sacrifice, free from the submission to a religious authority. But what are the origins of the concept of the left hand path? Let's find out. Many religions and spiritualities nowadays, and the magical practices of each, are divided into right and left, white and black. Many religions have a dualistic worldview, but the concept of right and left, being good and evil respectively, is European, even though, for instance, Buddhism is considered a right-hand path. In many religions, there has always been this perspective of the duality of everything, one side being bad and the other being good. But the phrases right hand and left hand is a classical model brought into other religions. Buddhists don't see themselves as being on the right hand path, and certainly witches of the old world didn't see themselves as or on the left hand path. These are concepts of the Western world because we Europeans have the tendency to label everything because we need a certain organized mind structure to know which is which so we don't get confused and avoid mistakes. Let me give you an example. The indigenous people of New Zealand see the right side related to life and the left side to death, the right side to the divine and the left side to demons. But this doesn't mean the right is good and the left is bad. They are just opposites that complement themselves, just like the Chinese philosophical concept of yin and yang, or pre-Christian Norse perspectives of order and chaos. The concept of the right side being good and the left side being bad is thanks to Europeans, mainly the Romans, who already had Etruscan influences and later on adopted Christianity and turned their own pagan perspectives of two sides that complement themselves into the duality of good and evil brought by religious beliefs of the Middle East. Let me explain.
Now, did you hear what he just said about Christianity and white people? This is a master of the left-hand path on YouTube. He just said white people operated prior to Christianity. White witches, black witches. With Christianity as a role model, they were able to see the evil of their ways and divided their ways into two ways. Things which are good and things which are evil. All things agreeing with the Bible, they shall consider good, and anything disagreeing with the Bible's moral standard shall be deemed black magic. And where did he say this information derived? The Middle East. Now, Middle East could be a double-speak word. Because if you look on a map, the Middle East is Africa. They just don't call it that. That don't seem to give power to the white people. But Middle East is a way of saying North Africa. Can you imagine that? A white man doesn't agree with the fake information of the conscious community that the Bible stems from the white man. Why doesn't a white man believe that the Bible comes from white people? How come they don't believe that shit? But all the wokeness in America believes that shit. Because they're living in a conscious delusion, illusion, conclusion. They're living in a lie that they're woke. Woke, Merriam-Webster, means facts, things that are true. When you come into information that is true, you have been awoken to the truth of whatever the hell it is. And when you accept lies as truth, you're conscious. You're conscious. A double speak word. Conscious, which means you're not operating in truth. You're operating in illusion. You're focusing on the self, a sickness that controls your character. Consciousness in America.
The Etruscans were not indigenous groups of the Italian peninsula. Their origins remain a mystery, but most likely they came somewhere from Asia Minor or the Arabian Peninsula even, or further east, because in their culture and religion there is a lot of Central Asian concepts and motifs, judging by their gods represented by animals and ferocious beasts. Their religion was a permanent conflict between the forces of good and evil. So it's not something common from prehistoric Europe. The Etruscans migrated to the Italian peninsula, later on received Hellenic influences, the anthropomorphization of their gods, etc. The indigenous peoples of the Italian peninsula adopted the Etruscan culture and religion in many ways. These indigenous groups of the Italian peninsula, who would later on make a confederation and be known as Romans, adopted this Eastern perspective of good and evil. So everything became a dualistic perception of good and evil. The agrimensori or grammatici were the people who projected the parceling of the territory. When it came to divide a certain region into two sides, the one to build the city or whatever urban center, and the outside, the religious perspective of the Etruscans was applied. The right side was linked to good and the left side was linked to evil. I've made a draft which I would very much like to show you to explain this. While facing north, the agrimensori or the grammatici would divide the territory into two sides, the pars destra or the right side and the pars sinistra, the left side. This was a highly religious act using a plow to delimit the city limits. This line opened up with the plow was called vallum. The space within the limits was called the pomerium, the symbolic border of a Roman urban center. The interior was considered the place of the gods, hence the constructions of the temples of the most prominent gods within the city limits. It was the civilized space. The exterior was considered profane, the place of mysteries, the unknown, the wild, the uncivilized, hence the construction of the necropolis outside the city limits for practical reasons and to avoid health issues, but religious purposes as well, the place of the dead and the underworld, the dwelling places of the ancestors. This is the exact same Norse concept I've talked about on the video of the Arth cult, which I will leave a link down below in the description.
Now, did you notice as he describes the left-hand path, he identifies the worshiping of ancestors. This is a left-hand path culture. This is what they do. Africa loves to worship the ancestors. Usually for the African, an ancestor was a king. It wasn't just no common man. It was the king. And when the king died, the constituents had to worship past kings, otherwise known as ancestors. They had an actual name associated to that ancestor. The king and the king before that king and the king before the king before the king were all to be worshiped forever. Today we call it communism, Marxism, and socialism. The Democrat Party. It's a goddamn shame. that you're living in this illusion. Now let's get back to our subject matter. The delusion of Margot.
Like I said, when Lil Wayne said, what's a goon to a goblin? They could say they got guns. They could say and try to intimidate you, talk about who's on their team. Like I said, I used to be in this apprenticeship, and the teacher would come on a live and talk about, how I'm talking to my spiritual team and who got something to say, and my team let me know whatever. I don't care who says what. Their team might have goons, but your team may have goblins. Don't be spiritually punked out here. Go to the Most High God. And like I said, a lot of these people bullying people, they don't know. You might look like nothing. I might look like nothing. Whoever may look like nothing. I don't mess with people. I don't start nothing with people. I stay to myself. I just go to my stuff. I'm telling y'all, some of these people may look like they okie dokie and howdy doody, but they got people in their arsenal. They got all kinds of deities and energies on their team that you don't want.
Can you feel the energy? She said, go to your Most High God, but yet you got deities protecting you. You can't have it both ways, honey. You either gonna get the honey or you're gonna give up the money. You can't get it both ways. You either gonna eat the cake or look at the cake. But you can't look at the cake and eat the cake. Because if you eat the cake, you can't look at the cake. And if you look at the cake, you can't eat the cake. What you want to do with the cake? Let it bake? This is a spiritual warfare that plagues the consciousness in crisis. They'll never get it right, ever. We will have some nutball case explaining to us the deities forever. Forever. They swear by it. They can't be honest. That's the bad thing about consciousness in the community of the awoke. They will not be honest. They don't want you to know that they're operating on the left-hand path. They do not want you to know, because they know if they tell you that, you can see through their representative. There's a demon standing there telling you they're woke. They're not woke. They sleep. They're operating on illusions. Does the illusion have power? Absolutely. Can you manifest things from the left-hand path? Absolutely. Can you give the highest level of knowledge from the left-hand path? Hell no. It doesn't work. The highest level of knowledge resides on the right-hand path. How do we know? Domination, world domination. Whatever is dominating is most powerful. Whatever has the most enemies is most powerful. Domination. Now, this is what's amazing about the right-hand path. It has no trained army with guns. It has no activists marching down the street with weapons. The right-hand path soldiers have one thing: words. That's it. The entire army is built off words. Why is it powerful? Because the specific words are directly from the source of all things. Therefore, these simple words can move a mountain. The entire army of God is built off words. Where on the left-hand path, they need every arsenal available. Nuclear bombs, this, that, the third, books, spells, charms, cards, everything to even think they have a chance. This is why when you operate from the left-hand path, you need an instrument. You need a wand. You need a deck of cards. You need something. You're not just going to say some words and think you're going to run things. You need an illusion. You need an illusion for all of your followers. You must make them focus on themselves so that they do not have spiritual group thinking. They must not be concerned about everything else. Only be concerned about yourself. Get yourself right and then work on everything else. This is what they're teaching. But the right-hand path, love thy neighbor. That the greatest act of men is the willingness to give your life. That's the greatest act of love in the Bible, that you're prepared to give your life for the things you love. Because you must be ready to sacrifice yourself for the cause, for the greater good. Man, I could rock this shit all day. And the funny thing to me is, they don't really, y'all don't really want to hear this shit. I only kick this shit for me and my amigos. I kick this shit here for me and my DJ. And for anybody that might catch it, get a little whiff of it, let it work for you. How much feedback am I going to get? Negative feedback from this. How much am I going to get? You'll be amazed at the magnitude of what 100 views on my channel causes. How much disruption I put against the left-hand path. Profound. I see the evidence. I know it's hard to believe, but little old pit boss changed the entire conscious community, shook that shit to the core with a little bitty channel. I shook it to the core. How was I able to do it? I unveiled the mask. I made them fight themselves. I didn't have to strike a blow. It's the Sun Tzu Art of War. Convince your enemy they're defeated without throwing a blow. It wasn't difficult at all. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to expose them to the truth. How do I know I was effective? Boy. It's a classic video. It's called the Sonetta Effect. That was the moment. From that point, everything shook. Here's what classical things they used to say. I'm not waiting on no boogeyman in the sky. This was classic till Pitbull showed up. Classic. I said, what are you talking about? I'm not waiting on a boogeyman in the sky either. I'm operating now, in the present, in the moment, in the power. And I just knew the information I had to share was going to rock their world. None of them have a show or a video about the left-hand path. They don't even want to share the information because you might connect it to them. First thing I did was tear apart their heroes. Who were some of their heroes? Dr. Ben, garbage. Dr. Clark, garbage. All these comedic masters of deception. So how do we tear them apart? We use their own words. We just went and got Dr. Ben's book and highlighted Dr. Ben, saying, Dr. Ben disagrees with you. Now, what do you think about Dr. Ben? And before you know it, they stopped talking about Dr. Ben. You're not about to get one of these conscious niggas to come out on YouTube with a Dr. Ben show. They would look like clowns if they tried to focus on Dr. Ben. Why don't they do that anymore? Very simple. Very simple. It's called the Booker T Pan-African Course by Digital Pit Boss. Put that shit to rest. Put that shit to bed. I was the only one. This is why I can make these statements. I was the only one. Who else did they have? Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, the so-called Pan-African hero of the left-hand path. I put their ass to bed with Booker T. Washington and the right-hand path. Then they went even further. They tried to use Marcus Garvey, which was just classic of the left. Take the truth and spin it. I went and got Marcus Garvey too. I said, here's Marcus Garvey's 10-point plan. Do you agree with it? I specifically asked Umar Johnson. He didn't agree with it. Then I asked Sarnetta. He didn't agree with it. They wanted to, but nobody ever read it to them. They never knew it existed. They didn't know what the hell the UNIA 10-point plan was until I highlighted the part about going to Africa and creating Christians on the continent of Africa. This was one of the missions of the UNIA Marcus Garvey Pan-African movement. It wasn't just about going to Africa. It was going to Africa to spread the kingdom back to the backwards African. In specific, Marcus Garvey said to take Christendom to Africa, to the backwards African. What did he mean by the backwards African? He meant those caught in the spiritual left-hand path. Because with the left-hand path, you can't produce the modern world. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. We have an entire history of people with knowledge, of the ancestors' spiritual knowledge. 1,000, according to them, billions of years. According to them, millions of years. According to them. Do y'all got a little time tonight? Because I have some more audio. I can further this conversation way in a whole nother direction and still end up in the same space. I can talk about paleontology and make the Bible true. They talk about paleontology, and guess who they got to agree with? The left-hand path. Paleontology those that have doctorate degrees. And if you don't know what paleontology is, basically it's the study of things buried in the earth all the way back to as far as they can go. Let's give an example. Let's say we could take a plug out of the earth. Let's say we could drive a machine 100 miles deep and just pull a big core out of the earth and sit it on the earth's surface. And let's say at the very bottom of this core, whichever is closest to the ground, that represents the first sign of life fossilized in the ground. And at the very top, that's modern day things buried in the ground. As you know, we bury people 6 feet in the ground. So 6 feet of above the top of this core is a human grave, represents modern day. And at the very bottom, what do you think is the first thing a paleontologist was able to discover? Mind you, we take this same 100-foot core that we plucked out of the earth, and we do it in various locations all around the globe so we can compare the dirt everywhere. We take a plug out of Africa, we take a plug out of Kemet, plug out of China, a plug out of everywhere, and we take a look. Here's what the paleontologists say. At the very bottom, the only thing we can find is bacteria. This is universal around every plug taken from around the planet. Only bacteria. There is no plant life, bones, dinosaurs, none of that. Just bacteria. So the conclusion is that the very first thing on Earth that we could call living was bacteria. There were no plants. There was no animals, no people, no nothing. According to the left-hand path, that had to be billions and billions and billions and billions of years ago, according to the left-hand path. So the scientists say the next layer up, mind you, they are analyzing the dirt centimeter by centimeter. That's pretty small. That's pretty small. That's like chopping up 1 inch. I guess I don't know how many centimeters in an inch. Let's say it's 10 centimeters in an inch. Let's just for an example. I gotta go look it up. I ain't been in grade school in a million years. According to the left-hand path, I lived millions of years ago. I've recreated myself a million times, according to them. So centimeter for centimeter, they are studying these layers of dirt all the way up. 100 miles of dirt is being examined centimeter by centimeter, not inch by inch, not foot by foot, not yard by yard, but centimeter for centimeter. They are taking a slither and examining it. And they say for a long time, there is nothing but bacteria. Finally, the next level above bacteria, we'll call them centipedes. They're not really centipedes, but we'll call it that because you know what a centipede look like. A little worm with a bunch of legs. They see something that looks like that. They call them arthropods, or they got a more technical name, but we'll just call them a centipede. They see these little squiggly centipedes. And they say, this was the next form of life, fossilized. Then above the centipede, the centipede, plant life appears. Then above the plant life, sea life appears. Then above the sea life, predators appear. Then land animals. Then dinosaurs. Then people. Then us. Now, according to the evolutionists, that'll be the left-hand path. There are two types of paleontologists. There are the creationists and there are the evolutionists. The creationists study this from the perspective that the Bible is true. The evolutionists study it from the idea that Darwin is true. They both have a problem. You have to prove your theories. So for the creationists, if all of this took millions and billions of years, the Bible can't be true. It couldn't be true. It's a wrap. For the evolutionists, they say, see, that's why you damn Bible believers is crazy. This took millions and millions and millions and millions of years to pile on top of each other. So they thought. Then came along a messenger paleontologist, who said, you know what? There's a segment of the dirt. I'm just going to give you simple terms. They call it the unconformity. What is the unconformity? It is a segment of dirt that was disturbed. Beneath it, below it, and then there's this unconformity. What happens in the unconformity is catastrophic events take place. Explosions, volcanoes, floods, and they change everything. Here's where it's going to get all the way real. All the way real. So they look at the Bible and they focus on Noah's flood. Not just written account in the Bible, but in the cuneiform tablets, various writings around the world. People acknowledge that there was some catastrophe flood. Remember, we're studying things buried in the dirt. So they look back to say, when does the Bible identify the flood? You can work that out through ancestral knowledge in the Bible. Come to a time somewhat around 500 BC, 3200 BC, somewhere around there, you get Noah and the flood. So therefore, the creationists have an issue. They have to prove all this stuff buried happened in a few short periods of time, in a few thousand years. All this occurred. That's going to be pretty difficult. So they go to the college. They got all these professors or all these people going for their PhD. They give them a few tests to run. Okay. Study this, study that. And they start tearing it apart. Here's the conclusion that they found. There is an area where they have an accumulation of dinosaur bones. They pulled out the Tyrannosaurus Rex, all kinds of the duck-billed dinosaur, all kinds of dinosaurs came out this one little spot. They studied the bones and they said to themselves, This dinosaur didn't die in this spot. Mind you, this spot is filled with dinosaurs. They pull all kinds of dinosaurs out of one location, which meant all these dinosaurs died around the same time around the world, because we pulling dirt from around the world. These cores are coming out the ground from around the world. Some of them are exposed. They can just go over there, like the Grand Canyon. You could just walk to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and take a look at millions of years of dirt exposed through different causes. This is where you come up with these unconformities and these different structures that they're looking at. This is the way they identified it. And so they say some of these bones traveled to this location all at the same time. How do they know? Because it was dragged and scraped, and they got all the scrape marks of the bones, and all the bones have these scrapings on it, letting them know that the collective of these dinosaur bones were all dragged and scratched. And if the dinosaur died in one spot, they could tell that too. Now, when something dies, there's a process where worms and maggots and different things burr through the earth, and they leave a small little hole that a paleontologist is going to spot when he's looking centimeter through centimeter. He could tell if, when these animals died, if other animals went down there to eat on their flesh. And he says the only time you don't find this type of thing is when piles of mud were covered quickly, so deep that the worms can't get down there to it. And so they find that the mud above the bones are undisturbed. And this lets them know that these animals were buried quickly. So they're unraveling the mysteries of the universe. They're not sitting on YouTube quoting Dr. Ben. They're not sitting on YouTube reading cards about the dinosaurs. They're not sitting on their knees looking for the ancestors to give them the questions. Oh no, they're out there in the field with microscopes, brushes, digging in the dirt, paying attention to the slightest details. So they say, these bones, this bag of bones, this bag of dinosaur bones, they were all swathed here quickly. And then on top of it, buried very quickly, very deeply. What could cause this? A nuclear bomb? Maybe an asteroid. They ruled them all out. They said it couldn't have been an asteroid. Because if an asteroid hits, its effects wouldn't have a global effect, such as burying these animals quickly like this. They said this was caused by a flood. So they turned back to the good book for answers. The good book says that the waters of the deep opened up and poured. That there was a catastrophic flood. Here's what they said. They have a certain timeline in the earth where things were buried quickly and things were buried slower. This timeline is uniform around the globe. Out of all the cores that they pluck out the earth, they're uniform. Everything is exactly the same. Ain't that a bitch? You can't make this shit up. You got to go to school for this shit. You're not going to read a Dr. Ben book and understand this shit. You're going to have to go to a white folk college for this shit. So, after examining this, they said that prior to this catastrophic event, there were millions of kind of animals and people and things walking on the planet. They said if we could go back to prior to this flood, we're going to call it the flood. Keep you abreast of the conversation. We're going to call it the flood. Prior to this flood, you wouldn't recognize the planet if you could go back. You wouldn't understand. They got human skulls, various shapes and sizes and different configurations that the conscious community would call Neanderthals. You know what this dude said? He said, listen, if I took a Neanderthal skull, put this nigga in a suit and stuck his ass on the 8 train in New York, you wouldn't know the difference between him and the rest of these niggas out here. That's about how different they looked. You wouldn't really be able to tell. Not if you shaved him, put him in a suit. You wouldn't know the difference. He would just be a big head nigga in a suit. But according to the conscious community, this a whole nother human being. This motherfucker must be from Mars. All kind of ridiculous ass shit with no scientific information for you to observe. Ridiculousness. Mind you, they're destroying the evolutionary theory as they break this shit down. Now, they'll be honest and say, look, we don't have all the answers to all your questions. We just know to keep down the right-hand path. And so we do. And as we go, we start to destroy. Yeah, millions and millions and millions of years ago. They want you to believe that dinosaurs walked the earth millions of years ago. But guess what? The paleontologists don't agree. Now, how do they know? What other things did they see, examine, and study to arrive at some of their conclusions? Luckily, in 1982, Mount St. Helens erupted. Y'all know what Mount St. Helens is? It's a volcano, and its top blew off. And guess what? They got it on film. They got eyewitnesses. And they got paleontologists who studied it. And here's what they was able to conclude. Things that they had never logically understood about paleontologists came to life after viewing St. Helens blow up. They were able to witness mud flows, pyroclastic flows. You know what pyroclastic flow is? That's when that hot lava flow fast. Fire flowing like water. Molten rock flowing at your ass like water. Fast. Half the mountain slid down, causing an avalanche. The avalanche created an earthquake, or an earthquake created the avalanche. They really don't know. Billions of trees for a 150-mile radius were unearthed. Towns hundreds of miles away were destroyed by mud flow. And guess what? Layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of mud covered the earth rapidly. How rapid? 3 hours. That just broke open the code for them. When they examined Mount St. Helens, The after effect was devastating. They were able to see trees buried at different layers in the soil, where prior to, paleontologists would have believed that there was a forest and then it got buried by earth, and then another forest grew, and then it got buried by a forest, and then so forth and so forth, until you got layers of forest trees buried in the earth. Animals were buried thousands of feet deep in 3 hours. This just unlocked all kinds of mysteries. The flood waters from the Noah flood, they actually carved out caves that the paleontologists study. You have no clue how lost you are if you have become conscious and woke. I feel you trying to identify with your roots. I get it. But you have become oh so motherfucking lost. I'm trying to bring you back off a YouTube channel with a simple YouTube channel and a black screen. This screen is black for a reason, because the low-level thinkers are distracted by anything they can see. So the screen is black for the benefit of the viewer. It don't benefit me making screen black. I should turn the screen on and let you take a look. Maybe you'll go, ooh, look what Pit Boss got this week. Ooh, look at them leather couches Pit Boss got this week. But I don't do that. I just make you sit there and think with your ears and not with your eyes. It's difficult to do this for year on, year out, year on, year out. Little by little. So the conclusion that this paleontologist was able to conclude through studies and observation was that these dinosaur bones were not old. Here's another fact. Those caves that was carved out by a flood, they were inhabited by dinosaurs that made nests in the caves and then got fossilized after the flood. Ain't that a bitch? They could prove that the cave was carved by water. And it would have to be a massive amount of water in various caves that they're studying. They could prove that this is a cave created during a flood, a major flood, one that had world effects. It's amazing the type of shit you can find. Oh. You better start thinking about these concepts that you have attached yourself to. And you should open up your mind to the truth. Y'all want me to go that deep? You really want me to break this down? Like, you really want me to break it down? I could go on. I can expand this conversation even beyond paleontology. I could. But I've learned something after 2,000 YouTube videos. And I guarantee you, I have done 2,000 YouTube videos. Whether you believe it, Ripley's believe it or not, they are there. I can sit here for a month unlocking my videos and overtake your YouTube channels. Everybody's names is in my videos. But we're not going to do that. We're going to let the past be buried. I'm going to let the paleontologists of YouTube uncover my videos. Somebody one day going to come here and access to my channel and be like, God damn, this boy talked about everything under the sun and battled all the demons at the same time. Trust me, you got to have heart to do what I've done on YouTube, because you're going up against the norm. Let me see if I could leave y'all with just a nice little hit rock video. Let me see what I got. I watch a lot of stuff, different things to connect the dots. I might got something I could hip you to. It's got to be short and sweet because, you know, I swear, y'all attention span sometimes difficult to acquire. Very difficult to acquire. Let me see what I got for you. I'm going to go into a little catalog of stuff that just be like, I don't even know what I'm going to pull up, matter of fact. But just somehow, I'm going to find a good one. Something that fits the moment, that makes sense to the conversation. Let's see what I got. Where's my list of videos? Hold on, be strong. Because I'm digging. Y'all making me dig. How do I get to my little list? Let's see if I can find it. Hold on. We're almost to the end. Sometimes I'm not prepared for y'all. I got to do it on the fly because, you know, this is not a funded program. Funded by me. Funded by me. Here we go. I got one for it. Oh, I know which one. I got to go way back. Way back. So that you can see. This is how far back I'm going to go. I'm going to go back about, I'm going to say 3 years ago. I played this on my show 3 years ago. And when I play this for you today, it's going to resonate because it's all about what's going on today. Although it was from 3 years ago. And it's going to hit you in the head just like this. Are you ready?
Political party. You're all full of crap. You don't know what the Illuminati is. You're Republican or you're Democrat. You're wrong. Why? It's this easy. It's called divide and conquer. That's why there's two parties and only two. And they're controlled by the same people at the very top who belong to the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberger Group. They also belong to the Trilateral Commission, and you people don't even know what the hell that is. But if you did know, you would know that these are the people that control your world by making global policies that you never vote on and by which parties both serve and belong to these organizations and control your world. Now, here's how it works. Really easy. Divide and conquer can only work if the people that are divided are not aware of the falsely created division. If you're not aware of it, then it works. If you know about it, then it don't work no more. If you have socialism without capitalism, it becomes communism. If you have capitalism without socialism, it becomes fascism. And it's just that easy. I love you. That's all you need to know. That's why Masonic symbols are all over your freaking money. But you don't pay any attention. Ridiculous. This guy's got...
Got the big homie Twister with me.
Whoa.
Did y'all get that? Because that was pretty quick. If you got socialism without capitalism, you got communism. And if you got capitalism without socialism, you got fascism. These are the powers that be that control the media. They control the church. They control political organizations so that they can influence and control your mind. If you're living in America, if my voice is reaching you in America, you're one of the lucky, because you live in the only recorded nation to ever develop a constitution that gives limited power to the government. Very first time in recorded history. You may not agree with the policies, but this Constitution was created by the right-hand path. They call it the Bible. Based on these moral codes, you were given life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Jefferson quoted, "You got life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness if you can keep it. Every time you give up a right, you gain slavery." You may not agree that America is the greatest country on earth, but you can't get on a plane and fly to another destination with a constitution that gives you more freedom than in America. Whether you personally feel like you receive it is a whole nother question. And since you don't really know what's going on based upon what side of the argument you're taking, you better hope that the truth comes to you and you no longer live in a consciousness in crisis.